The fire is snapping low in the stove, and the wind outside is walking around the cabin like it is looking for a way in. The snow is piled near enough to the window ledge now, close to 3 feet of it, dry and fine as flour. I have got a pot of meltwater going, and a heater the size of a bread loaf glowing orange in the corner. And by every measure, a man alive today would call this warm. The trees out past the door are black spikes against a gray sky, and the cold has teeth tonight. It leans on the walls, and it waits. And here is the thing that ought to trouble you. I am doing everything right, everything the books say, everything the storeman swore by, and my feet are still going numb inside my boots. The heater is roaring, and I am shivering like a wet dog in a March rain. I have got fuel. I have got shelter. I have got heat pouring off that little box, and my body is losing the fight anyway. It is like pouring water into a bucket with the bottom kicked out. You keep pouring, and the bucket stays empty. Now I am going to tell you something plain, and you are going to want to argue with me. A cheap, modern heater has put more good men in the ground than any bear that ever walked. More than the blizzard. More than the river ice that gives way under a boot. That little glowing box you trust with your life on a long night has killed quiet, and it has killed patient, and the men it took never saw the trick of it. I know how backward that sounds, so stay with me. That heat will not fill the corners of a room the way a real fire does. It will not dry the damp out of your bones the way a real fire does. And it will not hold you steady through the black middle of a long night the way a real fire does. What it does do is glow. It glows bright and orange, and it looks like life itself sitting there in the dark. And that glow is a promise it cannot keep. A warmth that lies to your eyes while the cold works your body over from the inside. Nobody teaches this anymore. Nobody sits a young man down and warns him. You will not hear it from the fellow who sold you the box, and you will not hear it from the fellow who built it, because there is a whole trade of men whose bread depends on you believing that warm is a thing you buy and plug into a wall. They will never tell you the truth of it. The truth does not sell heaters, but the fix costs you nothing, not one coin. It is the very thing near everybody scrapes out and throws in the ash bucket. The thing folks sweep off the floor and toss out the door without a second thought. The thing you have walked past your whole life and never once seen for what it is. I will name it for you before we are done, just not yet. Keep listening, because once you see this, you will never look at a warm room the same way again. Now let me tell you who I am, so you know these are not just words. I ran a trap line for the better part of 30 winters, up in the high country where the nearest living soul was 2 days' walk and a frozen river away. I have wintered alone in a cabin smaller than most men's sheds, with nothing but what I hauled in on my own back. I have gone to bed hungry and woke up hungrier. I have caught nothing for a week straight and watched my own hands shake over an empty pan. I have thawed my boots against my own belly because there was nothing else warm to do it with. And I learned every hard piece of this by needing it so bad that forgetting it would have finished me. That is the only way this knowing ever sticks. You do not read it into a man, you freeze it into him. The old hands who taught me did not learn it from any book either. They learned it the way I did, out in the country, with their lives hung on the answer. And more than one of them learned it by burying a friend who got it wrong. They would tell you those stories flat and quiet, no drama in it, just a man they knew who did the ordinary thing and did not see another spring. Here is what most folks have flat backward today. They think warmth is a thing that comes at you from the outside. They picture a full woodshed, a stack of dry split logs reaching to the rafters, a good glowing stove, a snug room with the heat pressing on their skin, and they call that safe. They see that orange glow and something in them settles and says, I am warm now. I will keep. That picture feels like survival itself, and that picture is where good men die. Now hold on to this next part because it is the whole spine of everything I am going to tell you. Keep it in the back of your mind all the way through. A man can sit right beside a roaring source of heat, close enough to scorch his sleeve, and freeze to death anyway. I have seen the aftermath of it with my own eyes. I will show you exactly how it happens, every step of the machinery. But not yet. Just carry that impossible thing with you. A man beside a fire, frozen. The danger is never one thing alone. It is always two forces meeting, the way a flood needs both the rain and the thaw. Here it is, the cold and the damp coming together. The outside chill and the wet that your own body makes without you knowing. The heat comes at you dry and hard from one direction, and it fools you, because your face is warm and your front is warm, while your back and your feet and the deep core of you are quietly giving ground. Late winter is when it does its worst work. The old hands called it the killing time, and they did not say it light. By late winter, a man is worn thin, his reserves are spent, his wood is low, and his judgment is dulled by weeks of the same gray cold. The country knows this. Winter does its patient arithmetic, and it waits for the season when you are weakest before it presses hardest. That is when the trick of the false warmth does its killing, when a man has the least left to fight it with. And the meeting of those two forces makes something a man cannot see and cannot smell in the moment it matters. The dry heat drives you to shut every gap, to seal the room tight, to keep that precious warmth from leaking out into the night. So you close it up, you stuff the cracks, and you shut the door hard, and you make yourself a snug little box. And in doing the very thing that feels like the smartest survival there is, you set the trap yourself, with your own two hands, and you climb right into it. That is the cruel logic of it, and I want you to sit with how backward it runs. The easiest thing to do is the deadliest thing. The most natural move, the one that feels most like taking care of yourself, is the one that digs the hole deeper. A cold man wants heat, so he builds his heat, and he traps it close. And every gap he seals, and every draft he kills, makes the danger thicker around him. He is not being foolish. He is being reasonable. He is doing exactly what his body screams at him to do, and his body is leading him straight off the ledge. The more it works, the worse it gets. That is the awful part. The tighter he seals the room, the warmer the air feels on his face, and the safer he believes he is. Right up until the moment the thing he cannot see has done its work. A leak in that little heater, a flame burning starved for air, and the room fills up slow with something that has no color and no smell and makes no sound. He does not choke. He does not gasp. He gets warm and drowsy and heavy in the limbs, and he decides to rest his eyes just a minute by the good warm glow. Now here is where most folks go wrong, so lean in close, because if this next piece does not land, nothing else I tell you will keep you alive. They believe warm air is safe air. They believe a sealed room is a saved room. They believe the glow means life. And every one of those three is only half a truth. And half a truth in the deep country is a key with no teeth cut into it. A key you can slide into the lock all night and never once turn. Warmth without fresh air is a fire with the draft closed off. It looks alive, and it is already dying, and it takes you down quiet with it. That air a starved flame breathes out is the thing that gets them. It slips into the blood, and it takes the place where life is supposed to ride. And it will not let go, and it crowds out the very thing your body is crying for. A man feels only warm and sleepy. There is no alarm in it, no pain, no warning bell. His own body is being cheated of the one thing it needs, and it cannot even tell him. Because the cheat wears the face of comfort. He is smothering in a warm room, and it feels like rest. The people who lived on this land for 1,000 winters running almost never went this way. They knew a fire had to breathe the same as a man, and they built their fires to draw clean, and they never once sealed themselves into a dead box with a starved flame. They kept the smoke moving and the air turning over, and they did it without ever being taught the why of it, because it came down to them through more winters than anyone can count. It was in the bone. It was in the doing. The ones who died were the newcomers. They came up from the soft country with their tight little stoves and their sealed rooms and their certainty, and they copied the shape of the thing without ever learning the soul of it. They saw a warm room and thought they understood a warm room. They took the doing and they skipped the knowing, and the knowing is the whole of it. A man can build the exact same fire 2 different ways, and one of them keeps him and one of them kills him. And the difference is not in his hands, it is in his understanding. So I am going to hand this to you in layers, the same way it was handed to me, slow and in order, because if I dumped it all on you at once, it would run right through you and hold no weight at all. Some things have to be set down 1 stone at a time, or they will not stand. Layer 1 is the one that turns your whole head around. The warmth you are chasing is not the warmth that saves you. Heat that comes at your skin is a comfort, but heat is not the same as warmth held. And the thing that keeps a man through a black night is not the glow on his face, but the fire that breathes clean and lasts. Heat is the flame, and warmth is the keeping, and the man who chases only the flame will freeze holding it. Now layer 2. And this one carries a little edge of shame to it, the kind of thing modern folks wrinkle their noses at. It is soot. It is ash. It is the dirty black grit that a real fire leaves behind. The mess a modern man cannot stand and scrubs away and swears he is better off without. Folks today want their heat clean and invisible. No smoke, no ash, no bother. A warmth with no leavings, and in chasing that clean warmth, they threw out the very thing that told the old hands their fire was breathing right. That black leaving on the stone, that stain up the flue, that is the fire showing its work. A clean flame that draws proper air leaves its honest marks, and a man who tends a fire reads those marks the way I read a track in fresh snow. The disgust folks feel for that mess is the exact reason the wisdom in it got thrown out with the ash bucket. They cleaned away the dirt, and they cleaned away the knowing right along with it. A fire that leaves nothing behind and shows you nothing is a fire you cannot read. And a fire you cannot read is a fire that can kill you without a word. The old hands never trusted a warmth with no story to it. They wanted to see the smoke pull up and out. They wanted to feel the draft come in low and cold along the floor, feeding the flame. Because that cold draft at your ankles is the price of clean air. And a man who seals it out to stop the chill has sealed out his own life. That little bite of cold on your feet is the fire breathing. Kill it, and you kill the both of you. Now layer 3. And this is the one for your hands, the practical bones of it, the part you can do tonight with what you already have. First, you never, ever burn a flame in a sealed space without a way for the air to move through. A low gap for the cold, clean air to come in, and a high one for the spent air to leave. You make that draft on purpose. You dig it in. If your fire is in a box or a stove, you check the flame with your own eyes. And here is the color that matters. Because a healthy flame burns bright and lively with a clean edge to it. And a starving flame goes lazy and low and turns a dull, sleepy blue. A blue that pools and wavers like something drowning. When you see that blue creep in, that is the fire gasping. And gasping right along with it, though you cannot feel it yet, are you. You crack the door. You open the gap. You let the cold come walking back in, even though every part of you screams to keep it out. And you watch that flame stand back up, bright and hungry and honest. You feel that clean draft move across the floor. You let the room lose a little of its precious heat to save the air in it. And you do it as a matter of habit, every night, without fail. And know this while your hands are doing it, that our own ancient kin were tending fires this exact careful way further back than you can rightly picture, in caves and in skin tents and in holes dug in the earth, long before anyone scratched a single mark down to remember it by. The care of a breathing fire is older than every word we have got for it. Now layer 4, and this one is going to sound like madness until it clicks. When the night is at its coldest, and every instinct in you says, build it bigger, seal it tighter, pour on more, you do the opposite. You do less. You keep the flame smaller and steadier and better fed with air, not bigger and starved and choked. Say it back to yourself, because everything in your body is going to fight it. When the cold presses hardest, you give the fire more air and not more fuel. When the cold presses hardest, you open the room, you do not close it. A great choked, roaring fire in a sealed box is a killing thing dressed up as a saving one. A small, clean flame that breathes freely will carry you through to morning every time. The old hands banked their fires low and steady and let the cold have a corner of the room. And they woke up in the gray light every single time, because they never once asked a fire to do its work without air, and they never once mistook a big glow for a safe one. Now circle back to what I told you to hold on to. That man beside the fire, frozen. Here is the machinery of it, step by step, inside his body. The starved flame breathes out that quiet, colorless thing, and it fills the sealed room. And he draws it into his chest with every breath. It slips into his blood, and it takes the seats that life was meant to ride in. And it will not get up, and it will not let the good air aboard. His blood keeps moving, but it is carrying poison instead of life, running its rounds full of a lie. His body hits a ceiling it cannot climb past. No matter how deep he breathes, he cannot get what he needs, because the seats are all taken and the door is shut. The waste that should be carried off and out backs up in him where it was never meant to sit. His thinking goes soft and warm and slow. His limbs turn to heavy sacks of sand. And here is the cruel turn of it. The poison makes him feel warm even as his true warmth is draining out into the night. So he lies down content in a room that is quietly murdering him. And he does not fight because he does not know there is a fight. His body burns through what heat it has stored, and finding no clean air to make more, it starts to fail from the deep core outward. The warm glow on his face is the last thing he feels. He is beside the fire, and the fire is roaring, and he is freezing to death all the same. Undone not by the cold at the door, but by the trapped bad air of his own snug little room. A man froze solid an arm's length from a flame. That is the paradox, flat and plain. That heavy, warm, drowsy pull he feels at the end. That is not weakness, and it is not a man giving up. It is his body starved of the one thing it cannot live a handful of minutes without. And it is screaming that one thing over and over with the last strength it has. Air. Clean air. Every cell in him is howling the same single word, while his mind drifts off soft and content. And that is the terrible mercy and the terrible cruelty of it both. The scream and the calm sitting in the same body at the same time. And here is the cruelest timing of all. The season you need that fire the very most is the exact season it is most likely to turn on you. In the deep of winter, when a man seals his room tightest and burns longest and hardest and is most worn down to fight it, that is when the trap is set its finest. The colder the night, the tighter you close up. And the tighter you close up, the deadlier the warmth becomes. Summer never kills a man this way. Only the killing time does. That is the country putting you to the test, handing you the thing you need and lacing it with the thing that ends you, and watching to see if you know the difference. Now let me tell you why nobody ever told you this. And it is nothing dark, nothing hidden, no plot against you. It comes down to money and to time, the way most lost things do. A piece of hard survival knowing only stays alive in people so long as people actually need it to live. The day the road finally reached the far valleys, the day the store opened its doors and a man could buy his warmth, already made and sealed in a box, that was the day this knowing started dying. Nobody needed to read of fire anymore. Nobody needed to know why the draft mattered. You just bought the warm and plugged it in. And once a thing is bought instead of made, the knowing behind it goes quiet in a single generation. The grandfather knew it in his bones. The father half remembered it. The son never heard it at all and would laugh if you told him. It did not get stamped out. It just stopped being handed down, because handing it down took time and effort, and the store had made that effort look foolish. Why teach a boy to read a flame when he will spend his whole life turning a dial? So it slipped into the ground with the old hands, quiet as snowmelt. Then the trade did something worse than just forgetting. It took the old truth and turned it clean upside down, and sold it back to you with a proud word stamped on the label. Sealed, airtight. They took the very thing that kills a man in a closed room, the sealing out of all fresh air, and they printed it on the box like a badge of honor, like a thing to be glad of. No drafts, they promised. Perfectly sealed, they promised. And folks paid extra for the privilege of shutting out the one thing keeping them alive. There is no money in telling a man to crack his window and let the cold back in. There is plenty of money in selling him a warmth so tight and clean it wants nothing from him at all. That is not a cover-up, and I will not call it one. It is just the quiet arithmetic of what sells and what does not. The truth is free, and the truth is a little cold on the ankles. And free, cold truth has never once outsold a warm, sealed lie. So the lie got printed on every box, and the truth went into the ground with the men who knew it. Now let me be straight with you, the way I would want a man to be straight with me, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. This will not happen to most of you. Most of you will run your heaters your whole lives and never once meet the thing I am describing. Because your rooms leak more than you know, and your nights are not cold enough to make you seal them tight. I am not telling you to lie awake in fear over it. I am telling you the shape of a danger so you can see it if it ever comes near. But here is the turn, and you had better hear it. Every single man this thing ever took thought that exact same thing right up until it had him. Not me, they thought. My room is fine, they thought. I have done this 100 nights, they thought. The fellow who freezes beside his fire is never the fool. He is the confident man, the experienced man, the man who has gotten away with it so many times that he stopped seeing it as a risk at all. It comes for the sure man. It always has. Now I promised you proof, and here it is, and I will give you just the one so it lands clean. Back in the time of the Second World War, The United States Army put out a plain little booklet for men who had to live and fight in the deep cold. And in it they warned hard and clear about heating a closed shelter with any open flame, about the silent bad air that builds in a sealed space and takes a man in his sleep. They had buried enough soldiers over it to know it was not a guess. It was written in the blood of men who went to sleep warm in tight little shelters and never woke. There was an officer, a man by the name of Dr. Frederick Cook, who spent long, dark seasons in the frozen country of the far south and the far north both, and he watched men in sealed quarters go dull and heavy and sick from the very stoves that were meant to save them, the air gone foul around a starved flame. He wrote of the headaches and the drowsy heaviness and the way a man's judgment rotted in that closed, bad air, and how the cure was always the same simple thing. Open it up. Let the cold, clean air come back in. Break the seal and let the room breathe. Men who were failing came right back to themselves once the fresh air reached them. Color returning, minds clearing, the heavy fog lifting off. That is no legend. That happened under his own eyes more than once. So here is what you carry out of here. 5 things. And I want them plain enough to hold in your head on the coldest night of your life. Never burn any open flame in a sealed room without a low way in for cold air and a high way out for spent air. Watch your flame with your own eyes, and when it goes low and lazy and blue, open the room that very moment. Let the cold have a corner, always, because that bite at your ankles is the fire breathing and you breathing with it. When the night turns its coldest and everything in you says seal it tighter, you crack it wider instead. And never once trust a warmth that asks nothing of you and shows you nothing, because a fire you cannot read is a fire that can take you without a sound. Here is the real lesson, bigger than any stove or any flame. Those men did not die because the country was cruel. The country was only ever just the country, doing what it has always done, cold and patient and honest about itself. They died because they were certain. They were sure they understood warmth, sure their room was safe, sure it could not happen to them. And the country has never once killed a humble man half as fast as it kills a sure one. Doubt is what keeps you cracking that window. Certainty is what seals the box. So carry the whole of it small enough to hold in one cold hand. A fire must breathe, or it will take your breath with it. And warmth that shows you nothing is warmth you cannot trust. That is it. That is the whole of it. Free as the snow piling up against my door right now. This knowing very nearly went into the ground with the last of the old hands, and I have watched too much good, hard truth go down into the dark that way already. I will not stand quiet and watch this one follow. So I am handing it to you the way it was handed to me, and now it is yours to carry and yours to pass on. Let me ask you something, and I mean it. Did your grandparents or the old folks in your family have a rule about the fire or the stove or the window at night that never made sense to you when you were young? Some small, stubborn habit you rolled your eyes at? Tell me what it was, because I would wager there is a hard, true reason buried in it, and I would like to hear it. Next time I want to tell you about something that will sound just as backward as this did. There is a night in the deep cold when the smartest thing you can do to keep from freezing is to eat less, not more. And I will show you exactly why a full belly can leave a man colder than an empty one. It runs against everything you feel, and it is true. So take care of your fire and see that it always has room to breathe. And do not ever trust a warmth that has stopped telling you the truth.